All right, so welcome to Community Scoop, the podcast where we dive into the stories of people shaping Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. I'm Vincent Moulden.
And I'm Jared Littmann. Today's guest is Jeremiah Batucan?
Batucan.
Should have probably said that ahead of time. The co-founder of Peake Social. Jeremiah co-founded Peake Social with Megan Bell after noticing a voice in the Annapolis area centered around the values of sports, social, and service. With thousands of members across Maryland, the Maryland region, they have partnered with several companies to expand their presence.
All right, so Jeremiah's work has been recognized by the Anne Arundel County Economic Development Corporation's Inclusive Ventures program, where he was named both Business of the Year and Ambassador of the Year. He has a background in marketing, product management, digital strategy, and has led the vision and execution of several products and services from ideation to launch. In his free time, he serves as an active board member of the Anne Arundel County Food Bank, helping to strengthen food security across the region.
Whether it's through sports, business, or service, Jeremiah is passionate about building spaces where people feel empowered, connected, and included. We're thrilled to have him here today. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. As I said earlier, I'm very humbled to be here. Go from former mayors to former governors, and then lowly me. So thank you for including me in your conversations this morning.
Maybe that's just a premonition of what your future,
Exactly.
But you've already accomplished so much. So tell us, before we get to what you've accomplished, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. Tell us about your upbringing.
Yeah, I was born in Maryland and always been part of Annapolis was basic home. So I went to Rolling Knolls Elementary School right here, midway for a little bit, came back to Annapolis High School. So Annapolitan, class of 06 there, very proud to be a Panther. And then AACC for college. For the first couple of years, transferred to Maryland, got my marketing degree there. And then, went off to New York City in my mid-20s, came back for family and brought me back to Annapolis, where I was very happy. This is where all my ties are. Went back to the community college, got my accounting degree there, so I have a lot of ties and big fondness for AACC and what they provide for students in the region. But yeah, Annapolis always felt like home to me. And we can get into it more, but some of the work that I do now is definitely shaped on the values of the upbringing and what this community has given to me. And so my chance to kind of give back to it is just like a pleasure to do when we have the opportunity to.
That's great. It's funny you mentioned the accounting at AACC. When I started working in the hardware store, one of my gaps was I realized I had no accounting background. And so I went and I took a couple accounting classes at AACC, and it was great. I still use those skills today.
Yeah, I can't say good enough things about there. They have an amazing program. The Wrapped Up Scholarship, when I was going there, this was, back in the late 2010s. My first time ever flying internationally was through AACC. So me and about 20 other students from the community college got to fly to China, and we got to go to Beijing, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, and just check out how they do manufacturing, how they do business. So like Carlin Cassidy, who now leads that foundation, has been just an immense resource of just, again, shaping students. And I just knew when I had that gap, like you said, I knew I was going to run small businesses, and the tax, as you know, the tax books keeps getting bigger and bigger and more complicated. So that was like an easy choice, and they provided scholarships and a lot of funds for some of our business, including Peake Social as well.
That's great. You ran through your childhood a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your family culture.
Yeah, so I'm the son of an immigrant. My dad's from the Philippines. Funny enough, he was living at a place called Leyte, is an island just south of Manila, the main capital. And just to give context of what the Philippines is, so imagine the size of Arizona, 1/3 of the U.S. living in that state. So it's 100 million people living in the size of Arizona, so very dense, very Catholic, so a lot of big families. The number of islands changes by a few hundred based on the tide. So it's almost like 7,000 islands in the Philippines. I was lucky enough to go in 2010 and 2015. But so I had my dad's heritage, he was asked, hey, would you like to go to America? He said, what's America? And they said, it's actually a land where there's a lot of opportunity. And so he came here and he actually worked for some surgeons in Potomac who basically didn't do any work with their own hands because they were so valuable to do surgery. They weren't cutting their own grass. They weren't cutting vegetables, none of that stuff. And so they're looking for, it was a classmate of his that had this family connection. That's how he arrived here. my mom's side is really from Cincinnati, then Missouri, then here. But they happened to meet. And then I have a couple of brothers, a baby sister who's now 24, so not really a baby. But it's been a different experience, I would say, having the lens of, seeing where my father came from. You go home and you see what they have. So dirt floors, cinder blocks for the walls. You don't want to call it poverty, because at the same time, they live near the water, they live near the beach. If they need fresh coconuts, it's all there. But it's definitely a change of life. And so you can kind of see how quickly your life can change. So anyone that says I would hit the lottery in America, you already have. You live in one of the best places to live in terms of economic advancement, opportunities. And so to kind of see where other countries are and how hard it is to break out and come to a place where you can make more money and better yourself. I feel like everyone should be very thankful. And obviously there's always situations that might help or hinder. But for the most part, we are given a free roadmap to try to make our own path, and not every country has that. So very thankful that my dad did immigrate here and meet my mom, obviously, because it's just given true perspective that even what I have now, you just feel like a king if you live in anything remotely nice in this country. Because you would go to another country, again, that's why I love travel. I love experiences. Kind of shows you what we do have versus kind of focusing on what we don't. I think social media does a great job of showing us maybe what we don't have. And, oh man, I wish I could do that. And that's not real life, in my opinion. Yep. So, so I think that also kind of influences a little bit how I approach life and what's important to me based on kind of where we kind of stand as a whole.
That's powerful. Thank you for saying that.
Mm-hmm.
So class of 06, I'm class of 08. So we probably crossed paths at some point, right? So what inspired you to start an adult-focused sports league?
So the year was 2019. We were playing in other sports leagues. Me and my business partner, we love it. We played in a number of leagues together for kickball and volleyball. And for us, just if you look at the story of Netflix, when Reed Hastings started, he was just disgruntled by paying rental fees to Blockbuster. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of good business start that way. We were not that much different. The current leagues that were happening here were not run, in our opinion, to be efficient. And I always tell our player, or really more our staff, our commissioners and our umpires and referees, saying people's most valuable asset is their time. So when they're coming here, whether they're playing kickball or bocce, as silly that may be, it's a kid's sport, they're giving us their time. And so if we waste, let's say we have 10 teams coming and we're not on time, 10 teams times 10 people times an hour, we just wasted 100 hours of mankind's productivity or leisure or whatever it may be. And so that's what we kind of felt like it wasn't being run very well. Rules were changing, commissioners weren't quite up to par and maybe sober. So it was tough. And so we said, hey, let's start our own. And our first idea was spike ball. And so we went through that. The accounting degree helped. We did the economics. There's zero money to be made in that sport. But we kind of kept pursuing, what are the opportunities? And then there was actually 2 leagues in Annapolis. One of them was shutting down because the commissioner was basically retiring to go more focused on his day job rather than his part-time work. And so we met. He said, hey, I heard a lot of great things about you all. We love that you're local. I'd love to kind of help you and give you my teams and help you with permits and all that stuff. And so that was definitely a huge start in the right direction, because that's usually the biggest problem. It's getting fields. And then from a database standpoint, as a former bartender in town, as class of 06 and local, in the marketing, I wasn't too worried about that. It was more just securing the fields and everything else, which is usually most people's, including today, is our biggest hindrance. And so when we kind of were able to launch, we did a cornhole tournament for charity, and then we did a few small events. And then March 2020, here we are. We have more teams than actually our competitors. We're ready to launch. And then March 5th, the whole world shuts down. So we talked about, hard it was to run a business during COVID. You just had talked about, your story with KB True Value, and then what happens in 07 to 08. We were in that same boat of oh man, and for us, there was no help, right? There was no PPA loans, there was no EIDL money, none of that stuff was available to us because we were brand new. Right. So luckily, and not not so unluckily, like my business partner, she's in the hospital system, so she obviously was kind of focused on how to navigate that. She does neuro and spinal surgery by day, so obviously very important stuff. We want people to get that when they need it. For me, I was running different conferences and festivals and events. My biggest one was a 15,000 person conference in Las Vegas for the hospitality industry. Wow. Probably the worst crossroads to be in during COVID because you can't meet together, and the actual industry itself is probably the most impacted of any of them. And so that's why we kind of stuck with it, because when we finally did launch that fall, it was 72 people. A lot of our friends were wearing masks outside, but we had people joining just because they said, I am so lonely. I moved here in Annapolis in February. I haven't really had a chance to meet many people. And so I just want to play, and I just want to meet people. And these two young girls were like, "Oh yeah, like I'm great." They're like, "No, we're not. We just want to meet some people, meet some new friends." And remember our first day, and it's always vivid to me. We were due to start at 6:30, and we had two guys show up at like 5:45. And me and my business partner, it was our first game ever, so we want everything like perfect. Like it has to be perfect, or people are going to talk about us and all that. Yeah. So like, there's people who are already, oh my gosh, we're not, like the cones aren't right? So I'm like freaking out. But they were just like happy to be there and like have a reason to get out of the house. And that game, we had 3 time slots, 6:30, 7:30, 8:30. After those two guys, again, they didn't know each other. They showed up. They played on the same team. Just happened they were both free agents. And then 7:30 and 8:30, they just stayed after the game and just hung out and talked, like on the fence, like the whole game. Never met each other. And then when we got done, we cleaned everything up. They were still there on a bench, like just socializing. So that's when we knew, like, oh, like this is more than just like sports. This is the social fabric that can tie people together. They're speaking the same language of like, hey, like it's kickball, a game for 8-year-olds, but they can be out there together, just focus on that, find more similarities and ways to work together than kind of what maybe other places were always kind of, I feel like, pinning each other against each other. Oh, you're a Ravens fan, you're a Redskins fan, you're red, you blue, you this, you're that. It's more like, hey, like we're teammates, and it's us versus them. But even after that, it's after us versus them, it's, hey, we all played the game today, let's have fun. Yep. And so that's what kind of started Peake Social and what's really fueled it the last 5 years.
That's awesome.
There's so many great things about sports. One of the things I found, I used to play Ultimate Frisbee a lot, and we'd show up for pickup every Saturday. And people would ask me, like, I'd go back and talk to my wife. She's like, what does that person do for a living? Like, I've played Frisbee with them for 10 years. I have no idea. I don't know their last name. Yeah. We talk all the time and we play and we're having fun, but you just kind of leave all that stuff behind.
I don't know what he does. I know you throw hammers, but
Yeah, exactly. I know which side to favor him on.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. How did you meet your business partner or decide that you two were going to do this?
Yeah. So we actually met through a mutual friend. And we all went to the same church. And so we both, Megan and I served on the hospitality team. So the third Sunday of every month, we between opening the door and holding the door open for people and greeting them, and then doing we would do the collections and then account for all that. But in between that, we'd always be talking about last week's game. Or usually games were on Wednesday or Thursday. So on Sunday, by then we both had time to like analyze the game, like, oh, we should have done this, or this kicking lineup, or this was frustrating because they told us this rule, and then the rule changed, and we did that. And so we were always like right on the cusp of like winning championships. And it's our friends' team, so it was fine that it was them, but they were the ones we kept like losing to. So we're always scheming. What do we do different? What are we working on? And so it was definitely a shared passion for sports. And I recognize her ability just to be a strong operator, and that's what you look for in business. People that kind of sit around and wait for work to come to them is, right. There's a place for them, and everyone's going to have maybe say more of that employee mentality where she kind of can recognize, hey, like here's what we need to get it done, get from A to B without needing a roadmap. So it's been a good. She's strong with operations. I'm strong with sales and marketing. So it's been a good blend.
That's cool. Great.
Good. So funny enough, I had left a company that was very events focused.
Yeah.
I worked there for 12 years. We planned conventions and summits and educational opportunities for people in trade associations. And I left March 2020, 2 weeks before COVID shut everything down. But one of the first emails I got was about pickleball. And this woman was telling me pickleball is on the rise. You guys have to figure out how to get more pickleball courts out onto the field. I didn't even know what pickleball was. I'm still not sure I know what it is. But can you explain why pickleball is so popular?
Yeah, I think we just mentioned about sports. Pickleball makes even better because I mentioned kickball, and so just Peake Social, we have 5,000 members playing 22 sports and soon to be 5 counties, and so
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been amazing to watch the growth. And kickball's number 1, soccer's number 2. Pickleball is now number 3.
Okay.
And I was like yourself in 2022. I didn't know what pickleball was. I've heard the name explained. I didn't know how to play. Didn't have a paddle. Didn't really have the slight inkling. But my marketing brain says there's something going on here, and I think we should start a pickleball league. And so we found Annapolis Area Christian School. Their high school was the only one that would let us use their tennis courts. They would not let us chalk the lines. So in blazing heat, I think it was like in August when we launched it, we would have to be there like an hour to 90 minutes early just to like put down this tape that constantly wanted to foil up, and it made you want to just almost not run it. And we did that, and that was our first foray into hosting pickleball. And again, we barely kind of knew the rules ourselves.
Yeah.
Fast forward to today, we were able to launch Ball at the Mall. We had 8 courts outside before Dick's just bought us out of that lease. We ran a pop-up. We run leagues with the Put-Away. We run leagues with Lifetime. We run leagues at Truxton Park. We're run more leagues within the county. And I think what makes pickleball so popular, 30 million Americans played pickleball last year. It's getting to the point where I think at the end of this year, if you add tennis and golf combined, pickleball will be bigger than it.
Wow.
From an equality standpoint, Ben Johns is the number 1 player in the world. He makes around I think $3 million playing it. He's actually from Silver Spring, Maryland. His partner, Anna Lee Waters, is only making, when I say only, making less, like I think she's within like $1 million striking distance. Now compare LeBron James to the highest paid WNBA player, right? Compare the highest paid soccer player in the world to the highest paid female soccer player in the world. So if you look at the disparity, it's much closer because the game can be played by anyone. You can be 7, you can be 70, you can enjoy the game. We see grandparents playing with their grandkids. It's a smaller courts. You don't need to be as athletic. And I get the tennis purist. I hear you. Yes, your sport is harder. Why don't you try wrestling, Mr. Tennis Person or Miss Tennis Person? It's not meant to be
Not sports beef.
Exactly. No, and I've been at Annapolis Truxton Park for these community meetings where tennis on one side, pickleball on the other one, and they are just going at each other. And I think it's all calmer now because we're building more courts, and so there's less of that divide. But end of the day, the average female pro pickleball player is making more than the average WNBA player. The spike in rise of the youth community, I think once it officially gets to be a high school sport and a college recognized sport, it'll probably miss the Olympics for 2028, but it's almost guaranteed to be in there in 2032. We're going to see, I think it just continues to expand because I talked to a lot of ADs, I talked to schools. They're seeing a drop in like wrestling is not as popular as it used to be. Women's volleyball is still like big. I think it's like soccer on both sexes is still big. We're seeing declines on tackle football, but flag football I think is rising. So parents still want their kids to be active and get out there and get off their screens and devices. And I think pickleball is going to be that great sport where they can do it without feeling intimidated, without feeling like, oh, I'm not athletic enough. I can't run a mile in 6 minutes to make the lacrosse team. But, you got to cover 20 feet by 44 feet. It's, not as challenging and as intimidating as some other sports. So I think that's the rise of pickleball.
Got it.
Have you given it a try yet, Vincent?
No. I've been invited several times though by constituents. So.
Well, let's get you out there.
During the pandemic, we started selling pickleball kits, and I bought one for myself, and we were just playing in the street.
Yeah.
And so we did the temporary chalk lines, which was great, right in the street. We were able to have friends over, and so it was a way to be social. And then eventually, So
you get it.
I get it. I get it. It's a lot of fun. And you were saying how it's not as active. It's a little embarrassing after an hour playing pickleball. Like, I'm tired.
And that's just it. Like it depends on the level that you play. Some people watch it and they see one group and it's like, oh, that's not very intense. But as you kind of grow and advance to different levels, you realize there really are levels to it.
Absolutely.
And then if you do singles, like you see them, like they're drenched in sweat after a game. So they can be as exercise forward as you would like, or more relaxed and based on, and again, that comes down to strategy. Like if I see someone who might not be as in a tournament, not in like rec play like trucks, I'm going to do this. But if someone's a little older or is not in good shape, I might play a game that's going to move them around more to get them a little more tired. Or I can tell they're young and fit, then I'm changing my game to then.
Right.
So it's a fun game that you can kind of really cater to how you want to attack the game in a fun way.
I agree. Can you think of an example where Peake Social has made a significant difference, a real difference in someone's life?
I have a few stories that come right to mind. Just so you know, if you play in one of our leagues and you win the championship, you get to pick a local nonprofit to donate to. That's been since we started. Every event that we've ever run, every sports league we've ever done, there's always been that service component, because we kind of believe for any community to do well, it all has to elevate, right? So how do you kind of eliminate these different neighborhoods and pockets? Again, like I went to Annapolis High School. My freshman year, we had 440 kids, and we graduated, I think, around 160 my senior year. So almost half dropped out or transferred or left. You were at '08 probably just missing when we had that kind of principal shift where we had 3 principals in like almost 3 years, and one of them had a little bit of a, I think, influence on a max exodus. But I saw kids with immense talent at Annapolis. So it wasn't that. It was more the mentality that, hey, like, how do we kind of make them realize that when a teacher says something, it's not criticism. It's almost like a coach on the field. Right. He has to give you feedback to get better. So that doesn't mean that's a negative. It's more they want you to improve, so they have to let you know. Now, obviously, different coaches and teachers might have different tones, and the great saying, it's not what you did, it's how you said it, things like that. But Peake Social has kind of embodied that, because it's brought people together that I think might not have an opportunity. So the two that I'll point out is, one, I love this story because they're close friends, and they used to go to the same gym, but he never had a reason to like say, hey, like, we're doing this, let's go out. And so luckily he was able to save it. He DM'd her, hey, we have a kickball team at the gym. Would you like to join it? And she said, oh, that sounds fun. That night we actually got rained out. She's like, oh, but hey, they're still going to host a happy hour at Federal House downtown. And so that was their first kind of not real date, but the ability to hang out outside the gym in a kickboxing atmosphere. Fast forward today, they're now married. They had their first kid together 6 months ago. So I always kind of joke, Peake Social had his first kid 6 months ago. I got to be at their wedding, and they're just a wonderful couple. They actually were our kickball commissioners for a couple of years before they moved away to Laurel. And then the other one that really comes top of mind is we had this team called the Sparklers. So we ran cornhole on the top of Pusser's rooftop. So we had like 60 teams. It was amazing. And I kind of saw this team, Sparklers, which I thought was a funny name. And it was like 4 women over 60s, and they were terrible. But they had a blast. It didn't matter if they won or lost. They were there to have fun, and they just always had this great energy. And then one of the women, she went on, and some of them went on and played in our bowling league. And then this one woman, she kind of then by herself joined our sailing league right down the street here at the Napa Sailing School. And she just had such a fun time. And I got to join them the last night. It was the championship night. And I just happened to be sailing on their boat because one of their players couldn't be there. So I joined, and you could just tell like they were having a blast. 3 women that didn't know each other, and they end up winning the whole thing, and so they get to pick the donation. And as I'm saying, hey, what would you like to donate to? She goes, I want to get this rum out. It's my husband's favorite rum. I said, oh, that's cool. Like, why didn't he join with you? She goes, he actually passed away from cancer, pancreatic cancer. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. He's like, no, like, this has been great. She's like, I would not have had the ability. I would have been too intimidated to go out and try to meet new friends and do anything if not for Peake Social. So my friends dragged me to the cornhole. I had a ton of fun. Then I went to bowling, had a fun. And everyone I meet here is just so nice and welcoming. I said, well, I want to try sailing for the first time. And here we are. So that night, she got to write a check to the Pancreatic Cancer Foundation in memory of her husband. Oh, wow. And so we've had a number of stories like that where, people whose little brother, he's passed away from after shortly being born, being passed away. So there's a prenatal and kind of post pregnancy fund that helps families struggling with that. When it's not like you have the child, it dies before, like during being pregnant. It's more like right after, right as they're being born, and that's both all scenarios are terrible. I think that's especially hard. Yeah. And so like he said, I'm donating to this because they helped me for my little brother passed away and my family was there. Mm-hmm. And so you hear all these stories, and that helps a lot too, because when it's playoffs and it's different games and people are a little excited and chippy and aggressive almost, and we say, hey, just so you know, like, you're playing for the Boys and Girls Club of America, you're playing for SPCA, or you're playing for cancer research, or you're playing, and we have a nonprofit, and so not everyone needs to be a registered 501c to receive a check from us. And so we've had people's nephews and nieces die in car accidents, things like that. And so we can say, oh no, don't worry about that, we can donate right away. And so we always I always like it because it gives us a temperature and what's important to our players. Mm-hmm. What do they focus on in terms of the social views of the world, and how can we make an impact there?
That's great.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think most people know you for Peake Social, but you also have Peake Events, right?
Yes.
So I attended the Asian American Festival,
Yeah,
the Anne Arundel
Yeah.
Asian American Festival last year and this year. Can you tell us what inspired that, and maybe a little bit more about Peak Events and what's going on?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I worked for a company that hosted, 200 events all around the world when I was in New York City. So events are really like, my background and what I'm very familiar with. And so the last few years, I've gotten to know a lot of different great event operators around here. So, shout out to the Let's Go Festival. They're one of our biggest donors for our nonprofit, and it allow us to do what we want to do. John O'Leary with the St. Patrick Parade and what he does with Sharon at the Dock. And then, ABC Events, which is a great team, huge fans of theirs. And they run the Maryland Seafood Festival, the Annapolis Irish Festival, and the Maryland Chicken Wing Festival. So as, again, more of a community and marketer, I said, hey, I have 5,000 people. They like doing events. And so we started partnering with all these events. And so I got to know that team. And I said, hey, they were looking to kind of transition out. And I said, hey, I want to, this is what I want to do more of. And so with the annual Asian American Festival, I said, why don't you let me run my event the day after yours, which will kind of help with economics, but then also let me kind of prove and test my model. And the first year actually didn't happen at all, which I didn't really, publicize. Last year's the first one that actually happened and came to fruition, which was an amazing turnout. We sold out. And then this past year, again, we had even more food trucks than ever. There's great attendance, the cultural there. And again, as my dad being Filipino, when I'm to Annapolis, there's probably 10 or 12 other Asian American students there. Mm-hmm. So not a huge reputation. If you look at the demographics, Anne Arundel is less than 5%. But you look at Montgomery County and Howard County, they're like 17 and like 20% respectively. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Huge Asian populations, but people still love knowing about other cultures. And so I wanted to bring that here. I wanted people to kind of see what a lion dance looks like, to see, what people from Thailand, what their culture looks like, from the Philippines. That's always, I don't know, it's from my background or what, but that's always our biggest demographic that attend. And so to have lumpia and things like that. Yeah. And the food is such an amazing profile, I think, of different cultures, especially Asian. The way that they master the different flavor profiles is just amazing, how they kind of do the different combinations of that. And so my thing is, I love experiences over consumption. Mm-hmm. And so I think when people buy that brand new shoes or that brand new car, whatever it is, and there's no knock against that, but eventually those all go out of style. But when you go with your family to like Thailand, or you go to a safari, or even you just go to the beach or a concert or a festival, you kind of have those core memories, and that never goes out of style. That's always something that can be kind of ingrained in your brain of the experience I had with someone, and again, that human connection. Because eventually the shoes fade, the car gets old, and then what are you left with? And I think when we kind of look at our final days, I rather look back at all the memories that we were to create. And as a company, I would like to create more of those memories. And someone was asking me the other day, because I do a lot of the filming and recording of both Peake Social and Peake Events. Someone's like, you must have a lot of photos and videos on your phone. And I looked at it on my way here. I have 82,000 pieces of media on my phone, 25 of those being videos. Wow. But I can pull out the ones where people just, they win a championship and they're all going crazy and loving it. I can say, hey, here's that. Or they go to a festival and they have that moment with this great photo of a child with a big lion dance head right next to it. I talk to other parents, because my wife and I don't have kids yet. But it's like when they go to Disney World, they get that one photo with, Goofy or Mickey Mouse, and it kind of makes the whole experience. And so I think that's why I like the events and what we're building there. It's just providing more opportunity for the community to come together, and then to have experiences, right here locally is also a benefit. I think economic development for the county, and then also for the food and vendors and local vendors we can bring in. So it's been wonderful to kind of watch that grow.
As we start to wrap up, before we get to the lightning round, I want to ask you one question. So you learned a lot. You've obviously been a leader in growing the organization. What leadership lessons have you learned that you'd like to pass on to other, either entrepreneurs or people who are aspiring to do their own thing?
That's a great question. I think right now, especially more than ever, there is a sense of why am I working here? Is it worth it? Should I be looking during COVID, things went a little wild. It's more like I have to work here, or I can collect unemployment. But I think the companies that I've watched, that I've really experienced, was the ones that had a purpose, right? And I think that's always important, to communicate your values, communicate why we're doing what we're doing. Again, like when I get our, we have staff meetings, like, Megan and I at that, or Peak events, at the end of every festival that we run, we go into a big circle. We talk about, hey, what did you do today? What's your name? Because, we bring, some of it's like temporary, where we have in like 40, 50 members who never met each other, and so, but this person was helping with parking, this person went with that. And so having that ability to say, hey, here's my name, here's what I worked on, here's what I enjoyed today, it kind of reinforces that, hey, like we benefited this community by being here and running it. And so I think anyone who is like running a business today, one, hats off to them and all the work that they put in, but then dealing with people, you really have to dissect what motivates them. And there's different things out there, like there's disc portfolio or personalities, there's all different kinds of ways you can find out what their motivator is. But to lean into that, I think is very important. And so you want to make sure that your calling is very strong. You want to make sure that you're at least an expert in one area, saying, hey, listen, I don't know everything, but I can help you here. I think it's important that they can trust you, that you're gonna guide their career. And I've told people, listen, like I want you to be as happy here than anywhere. But the moment that I feel like you get a better opportunity, take it. Like we're not in the business of stifling people to keep them. We want to constantly invest in them. And it's another saying that someone once taught me is, like, well, if we train them too much, they'll leave. And then, well, we don't train them, they'll stay. And then we have someone who's not trained. And also, like, hiring on personality is big. I think that's also a way to foster a strong culture, because you can teach people to bartend, you teach them to run leagues, teach them like accounting and different pipe sizes and everything else over there. But if they're not inherently a people person or a person that wants to serve others, that's going to foster ill will within your culture of your company. So some of it also in leadership is making sure you have the right people on the bus. Are they in the right seat? I always look at detractors, promoters as well, of saying, hey, like what motivates you? So like some people like doing numbers and scheduling, that gives them energy. Some people that doesn't, and so then they're dragging doing it. And so when you kind of realize when people are not doing something, if it doesn't give them motivation and you can find someone from your team that does, well then flip the roles and do it. And that's not always possible, but it's important to, I think, constantly be evaluating who's doing what, where can you specialize, where can you be a generalist, where do you want to kind of continue to adopt in them. And it's also the small things, right? Mm-hmm. Like be invested in who they are. So, we have staff that loves wine. And so we run an event and I got some extra wine. Hey, have it, take it home, enjoy it. Like that never hurts. Some people, they love sports events. And so if we get an opportunity or a reason to get invited to a game, sometimes we'll say, hey, like, thank you, but can I give it to my commissioner who loves this team? And that's also been important for us.
That's great advice.
All right, now we're going to transition to the lightning round. So this is where we're going to ask some questions. They're meant to be fun. You just say the first word or phrase that comes to mind.
Okay.
We might ask some follow-up questions because we get a little nosy sometimes.
Yeah.
Nice.
But if you could add one sport or activity to Peake Social, no matter what it is, what would it be?
We have touch rugby. I love to get actual rugby, more for just like an exhibition kind of match. I played rugby for a long time, so I love it. And then my 7 River Rugby down the street, they don't have it, like local tournaments in a while. So I love to add rugby to the mix.
Okay.
Tackle rugby.
Taco rugby?
Tackle. So, yeah, we have touch rugby right now. Yeah.
Never heard of that one.
Yeah.
I think you just created a new word.
Yeah. You tackle someone, you get a tackle. A lot of tackles out there.
Who inspired you to serve your community?
I would say my faith. Yeah, it's if you look at it's if you look at that model, it is and way of living. It's everything that we have is given to us, and so we can give what we have to others. It's a great model to live by.
Wonderful.
Right. So what's the best advice that you've ever received?
Being patient. And I don't know if it's the best advice, but it's the advice that stuck with me because I am impatient. So maybe it was just like saying, hey, like this is a good thing. And I know this is a lightning round, but real quick, that was Philip Radcliffe, who donated $1 million to ACC. And we had the chance to meet him. I was like 18 or 19 years old, tens, if not 100 millionaire, very successful in business. And he said this, and again, he was more, you have the opportunity to do amazing things in this life. So you can wait at the back of the bank line or find a way to get to the front. I just don't cheat and steal, but like there's ways to move faster. And I always thought that was a very important piece of advice of that you have to go chase your dreams. You can't just plan it and not execute on it.
But you have to exercise patience.
I don't. How do you spell that word? I don't know. Is that Spanish you're speaking?
What's your go-to comfort food after a long day?
Oh, great choice. I would say, actually, I'll call out Lima's Chicken. I eat there quite a bit, and then you can't go wrong with pizza. So
Wonderful.
And if you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
I don't hope, but I do plan on passing away for my wife. So if I pass away and was a great husband to her, I'll take that as a win.
All right. Okay.
That's great. Thank you, Jeremiah. We really enjoyed speaking with you today. Enjoyed learning more about you and how Peake Social came to its being. With included in asking your final word, why don't you also make sure you say if people want to get involved with Peake Social, how they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you touched on it, so I will call out the food bank and our work there. You know, we give almost 133 school buses worth of food and donations out in the community.
Wow.
So I will just do a quick shout out. Right now, we're doing a big capital campaign to build a new building. We're actually right now on the Crownsville Hospital in their old cafeteria. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine the state of the building is like, it's okay. Could be a lot better. So we're working on building a new building. So I will say, if there are ways that you're looking to give this year or ways to get involved, and it doesn't need to be money. We also will take volunteer hours and anything else you can do to help with that. But to get and to check out Peake Social is peakesocial.com. We have a big following on Instagram that you can kind of just watch and just kind of see what we're doing. Not everything's a league. Sometimes we have tournaments and pop-up events that you can get involved in if you're not able to commit fully there. But yeah, check us out online.
That's wonderful. Anything else you'd like to add?
Did you have a final message for the listeners?
If you're listening to this, I imagine that you're also involved in the community. There's probably a reason to a podcast like this. So I just commend you and just whatever you're doing out there, just keep leaning in, I don't want to say forget the noise, but especially locally, if you can have that local impact on a person today, tomorrow, next week, that's in your community, I think that's huge. I think sometimes we kind of focus on, not that we shouldn't, these really big things going on in the world, and those do deserve some attention, but I don't want you to lose the fact that if you're listening to this, you're probably an awesome person, and so just keep being that way, keep leaning into your community, finding ways to help, especially with your neighbor next door, I think will be a great way to live and help Annapolis and Anne Arundel just continue to thrive.
It's a great message.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Jeremiah.
Yes, thank you.
Right. Thanks, Vincent.
Thanks.
Great job.
All right.
Until next time.
Yep.
Community Scoop is brought to you by Naptown Scoop, keeping you connected to what's happening to you in your own backyard.